Reddit lawyers, what's the most ridiculous thing you've had to explain to a client? Story 1. I once had to explain to a client that double jeopardy doesn't mean you get a free pass to commit the same crime again. This guy had been arrested for shoplifting at a Walmart. In the past, he had been caught stealing from a different Walmart, went to trial, and was convicted. So when he got caught again, he confidently told the cops, "You can't charge me. I already got convicted for this before. That's double jeopardy." The officers were baffled, but he was absolutely convinced he had found a legal loophole. I had to sit him down and explain, very slowly, that the law doesn't work like a get-out-of-jail-free card. He got so mad saying, "Well, that's just stupid. Why do they even call it double jeopardy then? Sir, please stop committing crimes." Story 2. A man hired me because he wanted to sue Google for defamation. His reasoning? When you searched his name, the first thing that popped up was a very public mugshot of him from a DUI. He was furious and wanted to know how much he could sue Google for making him look like a criminal. I explained that Google doesn't create the content. It just indexes what's publicly available. If his mugshot was showing up, it was because it was on some third-party website, not because Google had a personal vendetta against him. But they should just delete it. "It's my name," he shouted. I told him that's not how the internet works. He didn't like that answer and fired me. No idea if he ever figured it out. Story 3. I once had to explain to a client that you can't just return a car after wrecking it. This guy had leased a brand new BMW, drove it straight to a party, and promptly crashed it into a tree while trying to do donuts in a parking lot. The next morning, he walked into the dealership and said, "Hey, I don't want this one anymore. Can I exchange it for a new one?" The dealership laughed him out of the building. That's when he came to me, demanding that I sue them for false advertising, because the lease paperwork said, "Customer satisfaction guaranteed." I had to sit there, staring at this man, and explain that satisfaction guarantees do not apply when you immediately total the car in a drunken stunt. He was absolutely convinced he was in the right. I declined to take his case, and he stormed out muttering about how they don't make contracts like they used to. Story 4. Had a guy ask me to help him copyright his name. Not a business name, not a brand, just his regular first and last name. He was worried that people online were stealing his identity by having the same name as him. He wanted me to file something official so that nobody else could legally be called Michael Thompson. Not his real name, obviously. I told him that's not how copyright or trademarks work. He responded, "Then why does Beyoncé get to copyright her name?" I tried to explain that celebrities can trademark their names when they're used in commerce, but they don't actually own the name itself. He was silent for a second, then said, "So, should I just sue all the other Michael Thompsons instead?" "No, sir. No, you should not." Story 5. A woman once called my office in absolute hysterics because she got a speeding ticket. She wanted to sue the police department for entrapment. Her logic? She was going 20 miles per hour over the speed limit, and an officer pulled her over right after she passed a speed limit sign. She insisted this was a setup, that they'd tricked her by putting the sign in a place where she wasn't expecting it. I explained to her, very patiently, that speed limits are not suggestions and that the officer did not, in fact, move the sign just to catch her. She refused to believe me, said I was part of the system, and hung up. A week later, I saw her representing herself in court. It did not go well. Story 6. I had a client who was furious that he was charged with DUI, because according to him, he wasn't actually driving. Now, let me explain. He had been drinking heavily at a bar and decided to sleep it off in his car. Smart move, right? Well, not quite. He left the car running, the keys were in the ignition, and the heater was blasting. A cop rolled up, saw him slumped over in the driver's seat, knocked on the window, and arrested him for DUI. My client could not comprehend how he could be charged if he never actually drove anywhere. I had to explain that, legally, being in control of a vehicle, keys in the ignition, engine running, counts as a DUI in many states. He refused to believe me, saying, "So I can get arrested for driving without actually driving? That's just Big Brother nonsense." I told him, "Next time, just sleep in the back seat with the keys out of the ignition." He shook his head. "Nah, next time, I'll just drive home faster so they don't catch me." I sighed and told him to find another lawyer. Story 7. A man once called my office because he wanted to sue a psychic. Why? Because the psychic told him he was going to meet his soulmate within 6 months. 6 months passed and, shockingly, he remained single. He called her back, demanding an explanation, and she said, "Sometimes the universe has delays." He did not accept this answer and came to me, asking if he could sue her for fraud. I told him that suing a psychic for a failed prediction was not going to get him anywhere because psychics aren't making legally binding contracts. They're just entertainment. He refused to accept this and kept asking, but isn't false advertising illegal? I told him no court would take this case seriously. And even if they did, all she had to do was say, your soulmate is still out there, just give it time. He got really quiet for a second, then said, so you're telling me I just got scammed? Sir, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Story 8. I once had to explain to a woman that divorcing someone does not erase the marriage from existence. She had been married to a guy for about 5 years, got divorced, and was now engaged to someone else. The problem? Her fiancé was extremely religious and didn't believe in divorce. He only wanted to marry someone who had never been married before. Her solution? Come to me and ask if I could somehow erase her first marriage from all records, legally making it so it never happened. I told her that's not how legal records work. You can get an annulment under specific circumstances, but a marriage that lasted 5 years wasn't just going to disappear because her new fiancé had a preference. She was devastated and asked if she could at least change the paperwork to say they were just dating. No, ma'am. That is called fraud. She left crying, and I never heard from her again. Story 9. Had a guy come into my office because he wanted to sue a restaurant because they wouldn't let him use his own food stamps to pay for his meal. He walked into a sit-down steakhouse, ordered a ribeye, and, when the check came, pulled out his EBT card. The server politely told him, sorry, we don't accept EBT. That's when he lost it. He insisted that since the government gave him the card for food, he should be able to use it anywhere that sells food. He argued with the server, then the manager, then got himself kicked out. So naturally, he came to me, demanding that we sue the restaurant for denying him his legal right to eat. I had to explain that food stamps are only for groceries, not for dining at restaurants. He then asked, so what if I buy a steak at the grocery store, walk into the restaurant, and ask them to cook it for me? I told him, then they'll probably kick you out for entirely different reasons. He stormed out, muttering something about how this country is turning against its own people. Story 10. A guy hired me to represent him after he was caught stealing from his own workplace. He worked at a warehouse and had been taking small items home. Nothing too major, just tools, office supplies, and even a few boxes of snacks from the break room. The company finally caught on and fired him. He was also facing theft charges. His defense? I wasn't stealing. I work there. That means some of that stuff is mine too. I had to explain that employment does not mean ownership. And just because you work somewhere doesn't mean you get to take whatever you want home with. He was genuinely shocked. So, you're telling me that if I work at a bakery, I can't just take a loaf of bread home every night? Correct. Even if I bake the bread myself? Also correct. He sat there for a long time, deep in thought, before asking, okay, but what if I just take stuff real slowly so nobody notices? I told him that was still theft. He fired me. Story 11. A client once hired me because he wanted to sue his neighbor for stealing his Wi-Fi. Now, you'd think this was about a neighbor logging onto his internet without permission, right? Nope. This man was convinced that his neighbor was physically stealing his Wi-Fi signal by somehow redirecting it into their own house. I tried to explain that Wi-Fi signals don't work like a garden hose. Your neighbor can't siphon it off and leave you with nothing. He wouldn't hear it. He was convinced this was why his internet was slow and demanded that I take legal action. When I asked him if his Wi-Fi was password protected, he said, what's the point of a password if they're just going to steal the signal anyway? I told him to set a password. He refused. That's exactly what they want me to do. That way, I can't see when they're stealing it. Sir, please. Eventually, I told him I wasn't taking his case. He stormed out, muttering about how lawyers are all in on. Story 12. A man came to me absolutely furious because his ex-girlfriend wouldn't return a $5,000 engagement ring after he proposed, and she said no. Now, normally, engagement ring disputes happen after a breakup. But this man had never even been engaged. He had taken the woman on a few dates, decided she was the one, and proposed to her at a restaurant in front of everyone. She was horrified, said no, and left, taking the ring with her. He didn't take this well and immediately wanted to sue her for theft. I asked if she ever accepted the proposal, even for a second, and he admitted, no, but she took the ring. I explained that legally, an engagement ring is usually considered a conditional gift, meaning it has to be given in exchange for an agreement to marry. Since she never agreed technically, she should give it back. But here's the catch. There's no law that says she must return it, especially if it was given in a public setting with no contract. Taking her to court over it would likely cost him more in legal fees than the ring itself. He lost. So you're telling me I just lost $5,000 for no reason? Sir, you gave it to her. In front of a restaurant full of people. He left, threatening to handle it himself. I never saw him again, and honestly, I don't want to know what happened. Story 13. I once had to explain to a client that just because they ignored a lawsuit didn't mean it went away. This guy was being sued for a contract dispute. He got served the papers, read them, and then did nothing. He didn't respond, didn't show up to court, just sat back and waited for it to blow over. So, naturally, the plaintiff won a default judgment against him. He showed up at my office, shocked that this could happen. I thought if I just didn't answer, it meant I wasn't interested in participating. I had to explain that ignoring a lawsuit doesn't make it disappear. It just means you automatically lose. He refused to believe me. But I never agreed to go to court. Sir, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. His next idea? Can I just file a lawsuit against them now? For what exact? For suing me without my permission. I told him to leave. Story 14. A woman hired me because she wanted to sue her workplace for discrimination. Her claim? The company was unfairly punishing her by not giving her a raise, despite the fact that she had only been there for 3 months. Now, I was willing to hear her out. Maybe she had a case. I asked if she had been promised a raise in writing. She said no. I asked if other employees in similar positions had gotten raises before her. She said no. I asked what exactly made this discrimination. Her answer? I work really hard and my boss is just jealous of me. I pressed for more details. She said she had been late a few times, missed a few deadlines, and accidentally crashed the company's website while trying to fix something. So, have you actually done anything to earn a raise? She looked offended. I show up, don't I? I politely declined to take her case. She left in a huff, saying, "This is why nobody respects lawyers." Ma'am, this is exactly why nobody respects you. Story 15. A guy came into my office because he wanted to sue his landlord for false advertising. His argument? The apartment complex advertised free parking, but he kept getting parking tickets. I asked if the tickets were from the complex itself. He said no. They were from the city. So I asked him to explain. Turns out, he was parking in a fire lane in front of the building every night because he didn't feel like walking from the parking lot. He kept getting fined by a city parking enforcement and genuinely believed that since the apartment offered free parking, he should be allowed to park wherever he wanted. I explained that free parking means you don't have to pay for a parking spot, not that you can park in places where parking is illegal. He refused to accept this. Then they should have put that in the lease. Sir, the city's traffic laws do not have to be included in your lease agreement. He stormed out muttering, "I'm going to sue somebody for this." Good luck with that, buddy. Story 16. A man came to me wanting to sue his wife for fraud because he found out she wore colored contact lenses. No, I'm not joking. He had been married to this woman for 2 years and always believed she had striking green eyes. One morning, she took out her contacts in front of him, revealing her natural brown eyes. He was furious. His logic? I married her for her green eyes. That was part of the deal. I asked him if she had ever actually lied about her eye color. Had she ever told him they were naturally green? He admitted, well, no, but she never corrected me. I had to explain that not volunteering information isn't the same as fraud. It's not like she tricked you into signing a contract under false pretenses, I said. His response? But marriage is a contract, and I wouldn't have married her if I knew she had brown eyes. I refused to take his case. He walked out shaking his head, muttering, "This is why men don't trust women anymore." Sir, please touch grass. Story 17. I once had to explain to a man that he could not, in fact, file a restraining order against his boss for making him show up to work on time. He worked at a retail store and kept showing up hours late. His boss, understandably, started writing him up and eventually put him on probation. This man decided that his boss was harassing him by expecting him to be punctual. So, naturally, he wanted a restraining order to keep his boss from bothering him about it. I asked, "How do you expect to keep your job if your boss legally can't talk to you?" His solution: "I'll just keep showing up and clocking in. They can't fire me if they can't legally interact with me." I had to explain that this is not how jobs work, and that refusing to talk to your employer does not make you immune from getting fired. He refused to believe me. A few weeks later, I saw a news article about a man getting escorted out of his workplace by security after refusing to leave when he was fired. I really hope it wasn't him. Story 18. Had a guy come into my office absolutely livid because a store scammed him by refusing to honor a coupon that expired 10 years ago. He pulled out a wrinkled, faded piece of paper that looked like it had been through a washing machine a few times. The coupon was for 50% off a specific type of kitchen blender, but it had expired in 2013. The store, of course, refused to accept it. He claimed this was false advertising because there's no law saying an expiration date has to be enforced. He genuinely believed that as long as he physically had the coupon, it was still valid. I had to explain, very patiently, that businesses have every right to enforce expiration dates, and that holding on to something forever does not override the printed terms. His next argument? But they still sell the blender, so the coupon should still count. Sir, that's not how promotions work. He left my office in a huff saying he'd find a real lawyer who understood customer rights. Good luck, buddy. Story 19. A woman once tried to hire me to sue her wedding photographer. Why? Because her wedding photos showed her as she actually looked. Apparently, she had been expecting some magical retouching that would make her look like a supermodel. But when she got the photos back, she was horrified to see that they showed her real face, double chin, wrinkles, acne, all of it. She demanded that the photographer fix the pictures, but he told her that he only did light retouching, not full-on body transformation. That's when she came to me, claiming emotional distress and damage to her self-esteem. I asked if the photographer had promised to edit the photos the way she wanted. She admitted that no, he hadn't. Then she hit me with, "But isn't there a law about not making people look ugly in photos?" Ma'am, there is not. I told her I wasn't taking her case. She stormed out and left a 1-star review for my law firm, saying I was insensitive to women's needs. Story 20. I had a guy come in and ask if it was illegal to marry someone just for the tax benefits. I told him no. Plenty of people marry for financial reasons. And while it's ethically questionable, it's not against the law. Then he hit me with, "Cool, so I can marry my grandmother then?" Excuse me? He explained that his grandmother was getting hit with high estate taxes and wanted to pass down her assets without losing a huge chunk to the government. So his brilliant idea was to marry her, take advantage of the spousal exemption, and then divorce her later. I told him, technically there's no law against marrying a family member purely for financial reasons, but it's probably going to raise a lot of red flags. He shrugged and said, "Yeah, but as long as we don't, do anything, it should be fine, right?" I politely declined to assist him in his grandmother tax evasion plan. As he left, he muttered, "Man, I thought lawyers were supposed to help people." Sir, not like this. Story 21. A man came into my office looking to sue his bank for stealing his money. Naturally, I assumed there had been some kind of fraudulent charge, an unauthorized withdrawal, something serious. But when I asked for details, he angrily slammed a piece of paper on my desk. It was a statement showing overdraft fees. I explained to him that overdraft fees happen when you spend more money than you actually have in your account. His response? "But it's my account. How can I not have money in?" I walked him through how banking works, that his balance had gone negative, and that the fees were applied as a result. He was not having it. "So you're telling me that if I go to a store and buy something without enough cash, they don't just give it to me anyway?" "Correct. And if I write a check and don't have money, it bounces?" "Also correct. So what the hell am I even paying the bank for if they're just going to take my money whenever they want?" I suggested that perhaps he read the terms of his bank account agreement. He left in a rage, swearing that someone's going to pay for this robbery. Sir, that someone is you. Story 22. Had a client who wanted to sue her local supermarket because she slipped in the frozen foods aisle. Now, slip and fall cases can be legitimate, so I asked her for details. Did she slip on a spill? A piece of ice? An unmarked wet floor? She slipped on her own flip-flop. Apparently, she was dragging her feet while shopping, tripped over her own loose sandal, and hit the ground. The store manager came over, checked the floor, and found nothing wrong. There were no spills, no ice, no hazards. Just her poor balance, and her bad footwear choice. She insisted that the store should still be held accountable because if they had better floors, I wouldn't have tripped. I explained that if the store wasn't actually responsible for creating a dangerous condition, there was no case. She got furious and told me I was working for corporate America. Ma'am, you tripped on yourself. Story 23. A woman wanted to sue her gym because she wasn't losing weight fast enough. She had signed up for a membership 3 months prior and had been going semi-regularly. But after stepping on the scale and realizing she had only lost 2 pounds, she was livid. She demanded that the gym refund her entire membership fee because they clearly weren't providing the results they promised. I asked if the gym had guaranteed a specific weight loss amount. She said no. I asked if she had been following a workout plan or consulting with a trainer. She said no. I asked if she had changed her diet. She said, and I quote, "That shouldn't matter. I come here. I sweat. I should be losing weight." I explained that the gym was not legally responsible for her results, especially if she wasn't following any sort of structured plan. She refused to accept this and threatened to leave a massive expose about how gyms are scamming people into thinking exercise works. Ma'am, that is not how this works. Story 24. A man wanted to sue his neighbor because the neighbor's cat kept sitting on his car. Yes. Really? His argument was that every morning when he left for work, he would find paw prints on the hood of his car. He claimed this was property damage and that his neighbor was 100% responsible because it was their cat. I asked if the cat was scratching the car or causing any actual harm. He admitted, no, just dirty paw prints. I told him there was absolutely no legal ground to sue someone because their cat walked on his car. His response? But I don't like cats. Sir, that's a you problem. He left my office still convinced that he had a case. A week later, I saw him post a furious rant online about how the legal system is broken because he couldn't sue a cat. Story 25. A guy came to me asking if it was illegal for his employer to spy on him at work. I asked for specifics, expecting some kind of serious invasion of privacy issue. Instead, he told me that his boss installed security cameras in the office and was monitoring employee productivity. I asked if the cameras were in common areas like the main office, break room, or entrance. He said yes. I told him that employers can legally monitor their workplace as long as they're not recording in private areas like bathrooms. His response? But that's unconstitutional. I have the right to privacy. I had to explain that the Constitution doesn't grant you the right to slack off at work without consequences. He was genuinely stunned. So you're telling me they can just watch us? Like all the time? Yes, that should be illegal. Sir, that's called having a job. He left, still in shock that Big Brother was actually just his boss making sure people were doing their work. Story 26. A man came to me absolutely fuming because his car got towed from a fire lane, and he wanted to sue the towing company for stealing his vehicle. I asked him if there were any no parking signs. He said yes. I asked if the curb was painted red. He said yes. I asked if he knew he was parking in a fire lane. He sighed and said, yeah, but I was only inside for a few minutes. Apparently, he parked directly in front of a grocery store entrance, ran inside for 20 minutes, and came back to find his car gone. He called the police, demanding they charge the towing company with grand theft auto. The officer, obviously, did not do that. His next move? Try to sue the city for entrapment because they set people up for failure by making fire lanes too convenient to park in. I had to explain, slowly, that fire lanes exist so emergency vehicles can get through, and that they tow literally everyone who parks there, no exceptions. His final argument? Well, it's my first offense. They should give me a warning first. Sir, that's not how any of this works. Story 27. Had a guy come in furious because his girlfriend broke up with him after she found out he cheated, so he wanted to sue her for wasting his time. He claimed that because they had been together for 2 years, she had stolen those years from him by pretending to be committed. When I asked how she pretended, he said, she always said she loved, but then she left. That's false advertising. Sir, that's called a breakup. His next idea? Try to sue her for emotional distress because the breakup made him really sad. I told him that if that were possible, everyone who ever got dumped would be filing lawsuits left and right. He didn't care. So there's just no justice for people like me? Buddy, you cheated. The justice was swift, and it was her leaving. Story 28. A woman once tried to sue an airline because they wouldn't let her bring 4 carry-on bags. She had purchased a basic economy ticket, which clearly stated that passengers were allowed 1 personal item and 1 carry-on bag. But she showed up at the gate with a rolling suitcase, a second rolling suitcase, a giant duffel bag, a backpack stuffed to the max. The airline told her she needed to check at least 2 of them. That's when she lost it. She refused to pay the baggage fees, saying that nowhere in the airline's policies did it say she couldn't bring extra stuff for free. They showed her the policy. She still refused to accept it. So naturally, she decided this was a legal matter and came to me, claiming it was false imprisonment because they trapped her at the airport when she refused to board without all her bags. I told her that not getting on a plane because you refuse to follow the rules does not count as false imprisonment. She stormed out saying, I'll find a lawyer who actually cares about human rights. Ma'am, a baggage limit is not a human rights violation. Story 29. A man came to me because he wanted to sue his landlord for refusing to fix his apartment, except what he wanted fixed was the weather. He had just moved to a city that gets very hot in the summer, and his apartment had no air conditioning. This was clearly stated in the lease before he moved in. But now that summer had arrived, he was miserable and wanted his landlord to install AC for free. I asked if the apartment ever advertised having AC. He admitted number. I asked if the lease promised AC. Again, no. His response? But I need AC. So isn't it illegal for them not to provide it? No, sir, it is not. His next idea? Try to claim it was a health hazard and that the landlord was endangering his life by not installing AC. I told him that unless the apartment was literally unsafe, like mold, gas leaks, structural issues, there was no legal obligation for the landlord to add new amenities just because he personally wanted them. His final argument? But if enough people complain, they have to change the law, right? Sure, buddy. You go ahead and lead that revolution. Story 30. A man walked into my office asking if it was illegal for a restaurant to charge him after he ate the food. He had gone to a very nice steakhouse, ordered a massive meal, ate everything on his plate, and then when the bill arrived, he was shocked. His reasoning? I didn't agree to those prices. I just ordered food. They never made me sign anything. I asked him if he had looked at the menu. He said yes. I asked if the prices were listed on the menu. Again, yes. So you saw the price before you ordered? Yeah, but I didn't think they were serious. Who charges that much for a steak? I had to explain that ordering something off a menu is a legally binding transaction. You are agreeing to pay the listed price by choosing to order it. His next move? Can I sue them for not warning me harder? Sir, reading is your warning. He left, grumbling about how this country is turning into a scam. No, sir. The scam is you trying to eat for free. Story 31. A man came to me asking if he could sue his parents for being. Yes, you read that right. He had recently come across some antinatalism philosophy online and became convinced that life itself was a burden unfairly forced upon him. His logic? He never consented to being born, so his parents were legally responsible for all of his suffering. I asked him what kind of suffering he was talking about. He sighed dramatically and said, I have to work. I have to pay rent. I have to do things. None of this was my choice. I tried to explain that legally, existing is not grounds for a lawsuit. His parents didn't break any laws by giving birth to him. But they didn't ask me if I wanted to be born. That's not how reproduction works. He sat in silence for a minute, then asked, well, can I at least sue them for child support since I never agreed to be an adult? Sir, that is called life. Story 32. A woman wanted to sue a haunted house attraction because she got scared too much. She had paid for a VIP ticket, walked through the entire haunted house, screamed her lungs out, and then, after it was all over, decided she had been traumatized and deserved compensation. Her argument? They took it too far. I actually thought I was going to die. I asked if anyone physically touched her. She said no. I asked if anyone threatened her outside of the scripted experience. She said no. I asked if she signed the waiver at the entrance. She said yes. I pointed out that the waiver explicitly stated the attraction would involve intense fear, loud noises, and moments of psychological terror. Her response? Yeah, but I didn't think they were serious. Ma'am, you paid money to be scared. They did their job. She left, mumbling about emotional damages. Story 33. A man walked into my office asking if it was illegal for his ex-girlfriend to still have pictures of him. He had broken up with his girlfriend a few months ago and recently found out she still had old photos of them on her phone and social media. He demanded she delete them. She refused. He now wanted to sue her for privacy violations and emotional distress. I asked if she was posting anything inappropriate or defamatory. He admitted, no, they're just regular couple photos. So you gave her permission to take these photos when you were together? Yeah, but that was when we were dating. That permission should expire. I explained that consent to take and keep photos does not magically disappear after a breakup. His next idea? Can I at least send her a legal cease and desist letter demanding she forget I exist? Sir, that is not how memory works. Story 34. A man came to me after getting kicked out of a buffet for eating too. He had purchased an all-you-can-eat buffet pass and took that phrase very literally. After 3 hours of constant eating, management politely asked him to leave. He refused, saying the buffet was unlimited and he wasn't done yet. When they finally had security escort him out, he became enraged and wanted to sue the restaurant for false advertising. I asked him how much he had eaten. He proudly told me, 16 plates of food, 12 bread rolls, 5 bowls of soup, an entire tray of shrimp, which he took directly from the buffet counter. I told him that all you can eat doesn't mean infinite time. Restaurants can legally set a reasonable limit if a customer is abusing the service. His response? Then what's the point of calling it all you can eat if they won't let me eat all I can? Sir, the point is not to bankrupt the restaurant. Story 35. A man wanted to sue his boss for not giving him a raise because he had been manifesting wealth and deserved. He had read a self-help book about manifestation and became convinced that if he simply believed in financial success, it would magically come to him. He spent months visualizing himself getting a raise, telling everyone at work he was putting it into the universe, and even making a vision board with pictures of fancy cars and stacks of cash. But he never actually asked for a raise. When his paycheck didn't mysteriously increase, he decided that his boss was blocking his success and wanted to sue for lost income. I asked if he had brought up a raise to his employer. He said no. I asked if he had done anything extra to earn a raise. He also said no. His response? That shouldn't matter. I worked the same job, but I believed I should be paid more. I explained that raises are based on performance, promotions, and company budgets, not thoughts and vibes. He walked out muttering, "The universe is against me." Sir, the universe is not your HR department. Story 36. A man came to me wanting to sue a casino because he lost all his money gambling. Now, this happens more often than you'd think, but this guy had a special kind of delusion. He had lost $15,000 in one night, then turned around and claimed the casino cheated him because the house always wins. I asked him what exactly made him think he had a legal case. His response? "I never would have kept playing if I knew I was going to lose." Sir, that's literally how gambling works. I explained that casinos are designed to have a house edge, that the odds are clearly displayed, and that every single game he played had a rulebook available if he wanted to check his chances. He wasn't having it, but the lights and sounds made me keep going. They're tricking people into thinking they'll win. I told him that's called marketing, not fraud. His final argument? Well, they let me keep playing even though I was losing. Shouldn't they have cut me off? Sir, you're a grown man. The casino is not your financial babysitter. Story 37. A woman wanted to sue a fast food restaurant because they didn't put enough cheese on her burger. She had ordered a cheeseburger and, when she unwrapped it, saw that the slice of cheese wasn't covering the entire patty. She took photos, demanded to see a manager, and insisted they make her a new burger. The manager, reasonably confused, told her that the burger was made correct. A standard slice of cheese never covers the whole patty. This was unacceptable to her. She wanted a full refund, plus extra compensation for emotional distress, because the burger didn't look as advertised. I asked if the menu showed exact cheese coverage dimensions. She said no. I asked if the burger tasted any different because of the cheese placement. Again, no. Her response? That's not the point. It's about principle. I politely told her she was out of her mind if she thought this was a valid lawsuit. She stormed out, yelling, "This is why people hate lawyers." No, ma'am. This is why people hate you. Story 38. A man came to me asking if he could sue a woman he went on a date with because she didn't text him back after. He had taken her out for one dinner, spent about $100, and then, after 2 days of no response, decided that she had scammed him out of a free meal. His logic? I paid for everything, so she owes me at least a second date. That's just common courtesy. I asked him if she ever promised a second date. He admitted number. I asked if she had asked him to pay or if he offered. He admitted he paid voluntarily. So, where's the scam? His response? It's implied. If someone lets you buy them dinner, they owe you at least one more night out. I told him that dating is not a financial transaction. He took a risk, and she wasn't obligated to reward him. His next idea? Well, can I at least sue her for wasting my time? Sir, that is literally what dating is. Story 39. A woman wanted to sue her apartment building because her upstairs neighbor was too loud. Now, noise complaints are a real legal issue, so I asked for details. Was this happening at all hours of the night? Was it intolerable? Her response? No, it's just annoying. She lived in a second-floor apartment, and the people above her had a toddler. Occasionally, she'd hear footsteps or things being dropped. I asked if the noise was excessive. Parties, music, yelling, furniture being thrown. She said, no, just normal walking. But I shouldn't have to hear that. I explained that in an apartment, you are going to hear other people existing. That's just how shared living works. Her next question? So what, I just have to live like this? Yes, ma'am. You live in a building with other people. If you want silence, get a house in the middle of nowhere. She wasn't happy with that answer and left, saying she'd find a lawyer who actually understands justice. Story 40. A guy came into my office asking if it was illegal for his girlfriend to break up with him over text. He had been dating this girl for 3 months, and one day she sent him a message saying, "I don't think this is working out." He was devastated and for some reason became convinced that breaking up via text was illegal. His argument? She made me think we had a future. That's false advertising. I asked if she ever guaranteed that they'd be together forever. He said no. I asked if she was mean or abusive in the text. Again, no. So you just don't like the way she broke up with you? Exact. Can I sue her for emotional distress? I told him that breakups are not a lawsuit-worthy offense. His next idea? Can I sue for wasting my time? Sir, If that were possible, every ex in history would be in court. Story 41. A man walked into my office absolutely convinced that his neighbor was committing energy theft and wanted to sue. Now, energy theft is a real crime. People tampering with meters, running illegal power lines, that kind of thing. So I asked him if he had any evidence that his neighbor was tapping into his electricity. His response? My electric bill was higher this month than last month. And I saw my neighbor put up Christmas lights. I asked if he had more appliances running, if the weather changed and affected his energy use, if he had checked his meter for tampering. He just shook his head and said, I know what's going on. He's stealing my watts. Sir, that is not how electricity works. I tried to explain that his neighbor putting up his own Christmas lights had zero effect on his bill. He refused to believe me, got mad and left. A week later, I saw him outside, staring at his power meter with binoculars. Sir, please get a hobby. Story 42. A woman came to me wanting to sue an airline because the flight attendant wouldn't let her bring a full Thanksgiving turkey onto the plane as a carry-on. She had bought a whole, cooked turkey and was determined to bring it home for the holiday. The airline told her that large food items must be checked, but she refused, saying it was too delicate and had to be in her lap. She argued. She screamed. She even strapped the turkey into the seat next to her and tried to buckle it in. Security was called. She missed her flight. Now, she wanted to sue for emotional distress and holiday sabotage. I asked if she had read the airline's carry-on policy. She admitted number. I asked if they offered to check the turkey for her. They did. Her final argument? But they let people bring dogs on the plane. Why is my turkey different? Ma'am, dogs are alive. The turkey is not. She stormed out, threatening to go to the media. I wish she had. Story 43. A man wanted to sue a hotel because the pool was closed during his stay. He had booked a cheap hotel for a weekend getaway and was furious when he arrived and saw a sign saying, "Pool closed for maintenance." His argument? They advertised having a pool, and I paid for the room because I wanted to use it. I asked if his room was still functional. It was. I asked if the hotel promised the pool would be open during his stay. They didn't. I explained that temporary closures for maintenance are not false advertising. His response? Then they should have given me a discount since I wasn't getting the full experience. Sir, you paid $80 a night for a room. You were not at a luxury resort. He left muttering, "This is why people don't trust corporations." No, sir. This is why people don't trust you. Story 44. A guy came into my office asking if he could sue a movie theater because the popcorn he bought was stale. He had gone to see a movie, bought a large bucket of popcorn, and halfway through decided that it wasn't fresh enough. He ate the entire thing anyway. Then, after the movie, he demanded a refund. The manager refused. Now, he wanted to sue for bait-and-switch advertising. His argument? They show fresh popcorn in the commercials, but what I got was dry. That's false advertising. I asked if the popcorn was expired or unsafe to eat. He admitted number. So, you just didn't like it? Yeah, and I shouldn't have to pay for bad popcorn. I explained that taste preferences are not a legal issue. His response? Then what's stopping them from selling people old popcorn all the time? Sir, if it was that bad, why did you eat all of it? He left, grumbling about corporate scams. No, sir, the only scam was you trying to get free popcorn. Story 45. A woman came in furious because her astrologer gave her bad advice, and she wanted to sue for negligence. She had paid this astrologer to read her birth chart and tell her if it was a good time to start a business. The astrologer told her, Mercury is in retrograde. Wait a few months. She ignored the advice, started her business anyway, and it failed. Now, she was convinced that the astrologer set her up for failure by not warning her hard enough. I asked, did she force you to follow her advice? No, but she's a professional. She should have been more convincing. Ma'am, astrology is not an exact science. Her next argument. But if she says she's a professional, she should be held accountable when her predictions are wrong. I explained that fortune-telling is entertainment and that courts do not hold psychics to professional standards. Her final argument? So you're saying anyone can just make up predictions and never be responsible? Yes, ma'am. That is exactly what I'm saying. She left, threatening to curse my law office. Ma'am, please leave the universe out of this. Story 46. A man came to me absolutely livid because his friend beat him in fantasy football, and he wanted to sue for fraud. He had spent weeks carefully drafting his fantasy team, researching stats, and planning his lineup. He was convinced he was going to dominate the league. Then, his friend, who barely even checked his lineup, won the championship. His argument? He didn't even try. He just got lucky. That's not fair. I asked him if any rules were broken. He admitted number. So, he just beat you? Yeah, but only because his players had a bunch of fluke performances. He didn't even deserve to win. I explained that luck is part of the game, and that just because someone less prepared won, it doesn't mean it was fraud. His next idea? Can I at least get my entry fee back since I was clearly the better player? Sir, that is not how gambling works. He left, mumbling about how he was going to expose the corruption of fantasy football. Buddy, the corruption is called luck. Story 47. A woman wanted to sue a clothing store because they wouldn't accept a return on a dress she had already worn to a wedding. She bought a very expensive designer dress, wore it to a fancy event, took pictures in it, and then, the next day, tried to return it for a full refund. The store refused. Her argument? I only wore it once. It's basically still new. I asked if the tags were still on. She said no. I asked if there were stains, perfume smells, or any signs of wear. She admitted yes, a little. So, why do you think they should take it back? Because it's a scam to make people keep things they only needed for one night. Ma'am, that's called buying clothes. Her final attempt? Can I at least sue them for not warning me that once I wear it, it's mine forever? Ma'am, that is the literal definition of owning something. She left in a huff, saying she was going to start a petition to force stores to have one-time wear rental policies. Good luck with that. Story 48. A man wanted to sue his apartment complex because his Wi-Fi was too slow. Now, his lease included free Wi-Fi, but it didn't promise speeds, stability, or private networks. The complex had a shared Wi-Fi system, and during peak hours, it slowed down. His argument? I pay rent here, so I should get the fastest Wi-Fi whenever I want. I asked if the lease guaranteed high-speed internet. He admitted number. I asked if the apartment offered private internet options he could pay for. They did. His response? But I shouldn't have to pay extra for internet that actually works. Sir, you are not entitled to gigabit speeds because you have a lease. His final move? So can I sue Netflix instead since their app buffers on my Wi-Fi? Sir, please just call your internet provider. Story 49. A guy came to me asking if he could sue his employer because they fired him for not showing up. His argument? I never officially quit. So how can they just fire me? I asked how many days of work he had missed. He said 2 weeks. So, did you tell them you were coming back? No, but they should have checked in on me. I asked if he had any emergency reason for being gone. He said, nah, I just needed a break. Sir, that is called quitting. His next move? So can I at least sue for wrongful termination? Because they never even gave me a warning. Sir, you stopped showing up. The warning was your paycheck disappearing. He left saying, this is why corporate America is broken. But corporate America is not responsible for your bad life choices. Story 50. A woman came into my office fuming because a restaurant refused to let her bring her own cake to a birthday dinner. She had planned a big celebration at a fancy steakhouse, but when she showed up with a homemade cake, the staff politely told her outside food wasn't allowed. She flipped out. Her argument? It's my birthday. They should have made an exception. I asked if the restaurant had a policy against outside food. They did. I asked if they offered desserts on their menu. They did. Her response? Yeah, but I didn't like any of them. I explained that private businesses can enforce policies. Just because it's her birthday doesn't mean they have to break their own rules. Her final argument? Well, can I at least sue them for ruining my night? Ma'am, the only thing ruining your night is your attitude. Story 51. A man came to me asking if he could sue his barber because he didn't like his haircut. Now, bad haircuts happen. It's unfortunate, but not a legal matter. However, this guy was dead serious. He sat down in my office, yanked off his hat, and pointed at his slightly uneven fade like it was a crime scene. His argument? I showed him a picture of how I wanted it, and he messed it up. That's false advertising. I asked if the barber guaranteed an exact replica of the picture. He admitted. I asked if the haircut damaged him physically. It didn't. I asked if the barber offered to fix it. He said, yeah, but I don't trust him now. So, to be clear, he voluntarily got a haircut. It didn't physically harm him, and the barber offered to make it right, but he still wanted to sue. His next idea? Well, can I at least get money for emotional distress? I'm too embarrassed to go to work like this. Sir, that is not how lawsuits work. His final move? Can I at least make him pay for my hat? I have to wear this now. Sir, just go to a different barber. Story 52. A woman came to me furious because her neighbor's dog kept pooping on her lawn. Now, I get it. That's annoying. But I asked if she had talked to the neighbor about it. She admitted. Her argument? It's not my job to police their dog. They should just know better. I asked if the neighbor was aware of the problem. She said, I don't care if they are. They should be watching at all times. I told her that the first step would be talking to them, and if they refused to stop, she could file a complaint with the city. She was not happy with that answer. So you're telling me I have to do all the work just because someone else is inconsiderate? Yes, ma'am. That's how being an adult works. Her next move, can I sue for property damage? Ma'am. Grass grows back. She stormed out saying, this is why society is falling apart. No, ma'am. The problem is that you want to take people to court instead of having a basic conversation. Story 53. A man came to me asking if he could sue a grocery store because their fruit wasn't sweet enough. He had bought a watermelon, took it home, cut it open, and was horrified to discover it was bland. His argument? They sell fruit to people under the assumption it will taste good. This was false advertising. I asked if the store promised the watermelon would be sweet. He said no. I asked if he had asked an employee for a recommendation before buying. He admitted number. His final argument? They shouldn't be allowed to sell bad fruit. Sir, it's fruit. I explained that produce varies naturally, and sometimes you get a dud. His response? Then they should taste test every watermelon before selling them. Sir, that is not a realistic business model. He left, swearing he'd take this to the highest court. Buddy, the Supreme Court does not care about your bland watermelon. Story 54. A guy wanted to sue his landlord because his apartment got cold in the winter. Now, if his heat was broken, he might have had a case. But that's not what was happening. His heater worked perfectly fine. He just didn't like how long it took to warm up. His argument? When I turn the heat on, I expect it to be warm instantly. This is false advertising. I asked if the lease promised instant heating. He admitted no. So the heater works, but you're upset that it takes time? Yes. And that should be illegal. Sir, that is how heaters function. His next move? Well, can I at least sue them for not installing heated floors? Sir, that is not a legal requirement. He left saying, this country needs better tenant rights. Sir, you need a sweater. Story 55. A woman came in furious because a restaurant charged her for extra sauce. She had ordered a meal that came with 1 dipping sauce, but she asked for 4 extra cups. The restaurant charged her 50 cents per cup. Her argument? That's ridiculous. Sauce should be free. I asked if the menu stated the price for extra sauce. She admitted yes. I asked if the server warned her about the charge. She said yes. Her response? Yeah, but I didn't think they were serious. Who actually charges for sauce? Ma'am. The menu. The rest. Literally everywhere. Her final move? Can I sue for false advertising? Nowhere did it say that sauce is optional. Ma'am, that is not how menus work. She left in a huff, swearing she'd boycott the restaurant. Good luck, ma'am. I'm sure they'll survive without you.